Anglia has to be different. It has to challenge, it has to think in different ways, it has to be out of the box. It's got to be big picture, because there are so many people doing so many good things, but actually it's joining them up and it's thinking about it in a different way that has to be our real challenge. And I think it's a balancing that economy with the natural capital, with health and well-being, with people, so you get the social, economic and environmental side. And it's the challenge of that that's going to be really different, I think.
What we've got here tonight at the launch of the Wild Anglia event is a collaboration of everybody that has an influence to make sure that development and growth is not at any price, it is at a good price for the environment. The level of collaboration is massive. We're sitting here in the New Anglia region that's worth £27 billion. It's a beautiful place to live and a great place to work, and it has many growth sectors in it, and a lot of people wanting to come here from around the world and be competitive.
Well, one of the things I think from the Broads Authority we really appreciate from both the ELEP and the Local Nature Partnership is this recognition that the natural resource in Norfolk and Suffolk is the bedrock of the local economy, and that's something that's really important in the context of the Broads. So the Broads is worth £400 million in terms of its tourism to Norfolk and Suffolk. And that's really important, and it's built on the splendid environment that we have. And I think this initiative that's been launched today in terms of the prospectus by Wild Anglia recognises that in such an obvious way that I think that's a really positive force for the future.
I think this is our opportunity to change how nature's viewed, what it does for us. I think for far too long it's been sidelined, it's a separate issue or an outside issue that gets in the way, or is embraced but as a side issue, when in fact nature is the basis of everything. Without it, we don't have any hope as a race. So we've got to see it as a foundation, as a building block, and then work out how do we invest in it, how do we work with it, how do we help shape our economies and shape our businesses to get the best out of it and ensure it's there for the future. And I think that's what the LNP is going to do.
Yeah, I thought it was very reassuring actually to hear in Richard's speech that he said this is much more than a nature conservation organisation, because the only way we can look after the environment is if we balance the economic, the social and the environmental equally, like the three legs of a three-legged stool, because you need a thriving economy to be able to look after the environment. And I think the other message that the LNP needs to get out there is that looking after the environment is actually something that is the responsibility of every single individual.
Especially in an area like Norfolk and Suffolk, where there's such a rich natural capital, I think for businesses to not be engaged in something, I think they're perhaps missing a trick. From the very big companies, where actually it's about attracting good quality employable staff, to an environment they want to live and work in, through to the smaller companies that actually a lot of them get their living from being in the natural environment. The tourism offering in Norfolk and Suffolk is a big part of the economy, and without the natural environment there wouldn't be a tourism offering.
I think Norfolk and Suffolk have always been fantastic places for nature, and I think they're places where the RSPB and other nature conservation organisations have invested quite heavily. But we're recognising that nature conservation organisations can't do this alone, that we need to work with others. And we've got some really good examples of that, where we work with the aggregates industries to create nature reserves, and work with agriculture in terms of changing the way that farmland is managed. And that's only right. So the vast majority of the land that's contained within Norfolk and Suffolk is owned by other people, businessmen, landowners, farmers, tourist centres, etc. So to my mind, this is just about adding to what we're already doing for nature conservation. As I say, we as nature conservation organisations cannot do it alone.
The world is coming to our doorstep, but this is a vulnerable area. 30% of the land's below sea level. We're vulnerable to climate change. We have a long coastline with vulnerable to rising sea levels, and we've got to look after what we've got, this beautiful part of the world. So we've got to make sure that growth and development that will secure the jobs and prosperity for the future is not at any price. It is not at the cost of the sacrifice of our environment. So we have the collaboration here tonight, the gathering of the great and the good, and the right organisations and the right people to make sure that we can influence development, shape growth, and continue to make this the world destination for people who want to come and make a living here and be competitive in the global economy.